Hi, everyone. Welcome to FinTech 15, where we get straight to the insights from the leaders who are at the forefront of financial innovation. I'm your host, Tallal Gondal, and joining me today is Mr. Alex Bausch, who is actually the executive chairman at Two Tokens. And there he actually helps enable organizations to navigate the complexities of tokenization and also aligning opportunities with existing legal and regulatory frameworks. Alex, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Alex, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on this show. So, to kick things off, what do you believe is the single most significant misconception that organizations have about the strategic value of tokenizations right now?
I think the biggest mistake that people are making is that they think that tokenization is the same as crypto, and that crypto and tokenization are a synonym for whitewashing and laundering funds, and that's the biggest misconception, right? And it's on us as the Two Tokens Foundation and Two Tokens to help companies and institutions through that jungle and show them that that is not the case. Right? So you see that we're going towards a tokenized economy in Europe, and that is based on distributed ledger technology. And tokenization is basically a representation of assets on those ledger, right? And they have been under development for nearly 2 decades, and only in recent years have those technologies matured beyond experimentation and ideation, and they are reshaping how we see value, how we see rights and ownership, and how we exchange that in the digital economy. And that's what tokenization is all about. And yeah.
Brilliant. So, what do you believe are the biggest challenges that organizations face in this area, and how does Two Tokens actually support them to get clarity and especially build the compliance and trust?
Yeah. So with the biggest challenge is, I think, education. Many
Right.
people understand parts of the process. You might have bankers who have been in the business for years in asset finance and need to get up to speed on Web3 and on DLT, tokenization. You might have lawyers, law firms, who know everything that there is to know about MiFID. And now, of course, we have market and crypto assets regulation. And we need to upskill those professionals. And so that all of the people are starting to talk from the same piece of paper, use the same idioms, the same verbatim, if you will. And
Right.
that is the biggest challenge. So, and
Yeah.
that's what you see in the last 5 years. We've been starting to define standards and methods. We're coming to some regulation. Europe is taking a lead on that, but you see America following. And that is really the biggest challenge. And how do you do that? By actually doing it, by use cases, by companies implementing, and that's what we support.
So I love that. So the biggest challenges around education and establishing standardization around the values and the language that is being used.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thing is, Alex, that obviously we were actually introduced through our mutual friend Johnny Fry, who's actually been on the show previously, which was amazing. And one of the things he said was that I really have to ask you about the power of the many energy project. So could you share a little bit more about the vision behind this initiative and what you have learned about using tokenization to create new value in the energy sector?
Yeah, so when we started the foundation in 2020, 2019, we said early on, let's not be academic about this, let's go hands-on. And so we work in real life use cases. The first use case being in logistics with the Port of Rotterdam, Port of Singapore, tokenizing bills of lading. We're now in 2025, we've done over 14 use cases, but I think the biggest of them all that we started in 2021 was tokenizing of energy. And we said at the time, let's tokenize energy assets, and in particular solar assets,
Right.
PV panels. Why would you want to do that? Well, the use case there was to fight energy poverty and make people who don't have their own roofs, make them the owner of solar panels that are someone else's roof. How do you do that? By
Mm,
fractionalizing the assets and giving them the ownership through tokenization. That was the first use case, and nobody understands tokenization. And she said, energy token, that's great for the nerds. They understand that, but to really be inclusive and include people that are not privy on tokenization and what have you, we said let's give it a different name. And so we said, well, if you have a solar panel park with 2,000 panels and you want to distribute that among 10,000 owners, that's really power of the many. That's how we got to the name power of the many. And so the first year we we wrote a white paper. We said what is possible legally. We included banks, lawyers. We included some PV parks, and that is what we did in the first year of the power of the many project. So tokenizing the ownership, that's easy. So that's
mm,
already being done. If you go to energy blocks, they are one of the organizations that are tokenizing solar parks in Germany, and you can sign up online, and buy energy tokens which represent solar panels in that park in Germany. That's easy. So the second part that we started doing was not just tokenizing the ownership, the asset. No, we also wanted to tokenize the offset. So if you know that you have a solar park, you know that that solar park creates green energy. And that green energy you want to then also tokenize. Why would you want to do that? Because you can use that offset, as a means of a digital money, really. And
right.
so we created energy tokens that were used for sharing energy. If you know that you have a solar panel park, you also know you have green certificates that you can tokenize. And those green certificates also represent value that you can trade. And so that's what we've been doing. And lately, we're also, focusing on energy communities and energy hubs, right? And the energy communities and energy hubs are really all about how do we share energy with a community of local people who want to not trade the energy but share it among each other to live off the grid as much as possible. That not only includes solar panels, but that also includes storage, batteries. You know,
Mm,
and so in other words, if you're going to share digital energy with one another, then that includes tokenization because a token is really a digital representation. It's really a container of digital value that you
mm,
then share with one another.
yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's what we do. And so if you go to powerofthemany.org, you'll find all the white papers and all the books that we've created in the last 4 years and that are actually being implemented now at several projects all over Europe.
Mm, amazing. That sounds absolutely fascinating, Alex. And I just quickly wanted to ask you if you could give us a 30-second masterclass, and I know it's more complicated than that, but if you could give us a 30-second masterclass on how do you actually tokenize the value of the asset, what would you say?
I would say if you digitalize your infrastructure, right? So you have your solar panels, you have your battery, you have your grid connection, and you know all that. Then you then need to create a digital twin, and all the data that is created, you know that data, right? You put that data in separate packets, you know, containers or tokens, and you store those in wallets. That's basically what you do, and then you can decide what you do with those tokens, whether you
Hmm,
you store them or you trade them, or we are part of a European regulatory sandbox, and one of the questions that we pose to the regulators is, if we have those energy tokens, what if we attach them to stablecoins?
right.
Would that be legal tender, right? And
Hmm,
as a matter of fact, in certain countries in Europe, they are doing pilots now that you can pay with the energy that you generated in your digital wallet, and you use them in your local store. Uh,
hmm.
all of that information is available, and that is the future that we're heading toward.
Amazing. Wow. So, Alex, in terms of two tokens, does it actually operate in any other industries or sectors apart from energy as well?
Yes, so we started, of course, in DeFi, decentralized finance. So we work with the big banks in the Netherlands, not per se just the Netherlands, but the MiCA territory, which is Europe. And for finance, that is the first use case. That was a low-hanging fruit. Obviously, any industry is going to be digitalized and tokenized eventually. So, but because we needed to start somewhere, we took on energy as an obvious second one. But of course, if you look at supply chain finance and with the ports, that's also a big one. All those supply chains are being digitalized, and tokenization is a big perk there. If you look at digitizing real world assets, we work in tokenizing gold or
Hmm.
tokenizing other real world assets, real estate, what have you. And so we take on those real life use cases and help companies that need assistance there.
Right. Love that. So, Alex, just very quickly, what do you believe are the key trends right now that will actually sort of accelerate mainstream adoption of tokenization?
So I think if you look globally, you have three areas. You have, of course, Europe and we came up in Europe with the markets and crypto assets regulation, which I think is going to be a big help. Creates clarity for companies. At least now they know it might not be the best policy framework, but at least it is a policy framework. And
Mm,
companies who want to invest, they want clarity and they want something they can abide by. And I'm sure there's going to be a MiCA 1.1, 1.2 at some point, but it's there and it's already working. You see that China have their own frameworks and they're focusing very much on the digital currency that they use there, um, um, and which is more on stable coins and CBDC. And of course, in the United States, the Trump administration is also really, with going full swing at digital currencies, stablecoins, and tokenization. And the SEC, up until recently, was very much against, and they are now also following. So that is going to have a big influence on the adoption of digital assets. Um, Furthermore, I think tokenization, which of course the process of representing assets on ledgers,
yeah.
it's not just financial assets, but it's also real world assets, and
Mm,
very important data assets, such as digital identities, data sets, but also AI training inputs. And
mm,
as you know, the AI developments are accelerating, and I
yeah.
think tokenization and AI go hand in hand. So that is also going to really influence the adoption of tokenization. And so I think DLT and tokenization matter, and because transactions and operational efficiency is very important. We need more robustness in terms of infrastructure. We want fractionalized, because if you look at it, there's a lot of wealth locked up in bricks and mortar, right? If you look
Mm,
at the average balance sheet, a lot of that wealth is locked up in balance. If you could help those companies with those balance sheets and fractionalize that or tokenize those balance sheets, you create more liquidity. That is something that's really interesting.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
those are all signs that tokenization, we thought 5 years ago it was going to be a quick adoption cycle, but that didn't happen, right? So it's not a quick adoption cycle because of all the legal regulatory hurdles that we had to go through.
Yeah.
But the adoption is there, it is coming, and we are really going towards that tokenized economy.
Mm, yeah, brilliant. So, Alex, let's shift gears. Let's focus on the your personal journey. So, what was the most important value or lessons that your parents taught you at a young age that has been really a recurring theme in your life and has kind of led you through your transition into leadership in financial innovation?
Yeah, so I suppose my parents were also entrepreneurs, and I started with entrepreneurship at a very early age. And I think the biggest lesson was always never, never, never give up.
Hmm.
And high peaks and deep valleys, right? So you have to
Yeah.
just continue that, and it's important that you find balance in your life, right? It's okay to work hard and play hard, but you need to always have the balance and time for your family. Uh, you know, so those are the important lessons that I was taught. And the last lesson is to always be curious, always be
Mm.
open for new innovations, and look for signs from directions that you never expect. And yeah, that I think those are important lessons that I've always lived by.
Excellent. So, Alex, how do you create that balance? You talk about the balance, but how do you create the balance? Because there's obviously a huge sort of uproar about the hustle culture where you have to work, 100 hours a day, and you have to make sure that you're always working. So, how do you actually create that balance?
So if I always work, you burn out, right?
Hmm.
You don't want to burn out, I can tell you. And so the balance. I'm old school, I suppose. I'm not saying I do 9 to 5, but in today's world, it seems like you're always on and you always work.
Yeah.
And what helps is that you just put away your laptop for a week and just don't touch it. And that's
Hmm.
one. Second, and I admit it doesn't work for me very well, but don't read the news. Right? It's it's not boring, but it's definitely frustrating. And third, always be curious.
Hmm.
Always make sure that you are curious in other domains.
Sure.
And for instance, in my case, my background is cybersecurity and data communication.
Right.
How did I up in banking and finance? Right? You might ask. Right? That's because in 2015, I was looking at new ways of helping the unbanked getting banked in the project in India, right? Yeah, and that was way before crypto and decentralized finance, right? And
Yeah.
why did I do that? Because I thought I was curious. How can you create solutions for that part of the world?
Hmm.
And so always be curious.
Love that. So, Alex, what is the best leadership advice that you have ever received?
Always hire people that are better than you, and make
Hmm.
yourself expandable. Simple.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Perfect. I love that. So, Alex, next question. What do you see is the biggest difference between ultra successful people and everybody else?
oh, see, you can have a lot of people that try and don't make it, try again, don't make it. But ultra successful people, it, it's also a little bit of luck. Oftentimes, it's a lot of luck. You know, I know people who tried 3, 4 times and they gave up. I know people that didn't give up and ultimately they became very successful. Being successful, I think, is not it's not something that you live for. It's the reward that you get if you continue to work and you don't give up,
Hmm.
right? So,
Love that.
of course, everybody wants to be successful, but it's not a given that you're going to be successful by itself, right?
Yeah. Certainly, absolutely. I love that, Alex. Okay, so some concluding thoughts. In terms of what advice would you share with somebody like me and other people who are looking to transition into the fintech space and the financial innovation space from a different sector, and are hoping to be future leaders in the financial innovation space?
Well, first of all, if you recall the IT industry back in the 90s, you might not have been there, but I was. And at that time, IT was a specific industry and you were an IT specialist.
Yeah.
The same happened for cybersecurity at some point. But now IT is part of every industry. So you might be great at logistics. And if you don't know IT, you're not going to be great in logistics. Now take finance or decentralized finance. It's going to be the same like IT. Everything is going to be touched by finance in some way, shape, or form. So you might be great in farming, but if you don't understand the intricacies of decentralized finance and IT, you're never going to be great at farming,
Hmm.
healthcare. or whatever. So it's a multidisciplinary game. The biggest revolution that is ongoing now in humanity is the way we perceive value and how value models are being rolled out. And that includes IT, that includes security, that also includes how good you are in your specific industry.
Yeah.
And yes, that also means you need to understand different aspects of finance.
Mm.
So finance is just one of those core competencies that you need to understand to be successful in your domain, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's my advice. If you look
Brilliant.
at tokenization, everybody confuses tokenization always with a finance only game, but nothing is less from the truth.
Mm.
Tokenization can be used for voting. Tokenization can be used to exchange data between one another. Does that make it finance? No, right? But finance is just one of those use cases. So my
Yeah.
advice would be, skill up on tokenization and finance, and implement that in your own industry.
Brilliant. I love that. So, Alex, where can people go to learn more about yourself and Two Tokens?
Yeah, twotokens.org. That's our main website. Where all the news is being published. We're working on an AI agent, so you can ask any questions. Yeah, we'll put it behind a paywall because we're a non-for-profit foundation and we need to pay for all that research.
Yeah.
And that's where you find everything. And if you're interested in following masterclasses, we do that too. And yeah,
Fantastic.
our focus is Europe.
Okay, yeah, great. And what I'll do is I'll put all the links below in the description of the video so people can go and follow you and follow Two Tokens. And so, with those concluding thoughts, Alex, thank you so much for sharing your insights to our audience. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. And make sure to follow Alex, make sure to follow me and FinTech 15 on LinkedIn and subscribe on YouTube. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next episode.